that's unfolding in the way that we organize our society. Have you all heard of the long tail? Has anyone heard that phrase before? One of the editors of Wired magazine coined this, and his point is that over here in the head, this is any kind of market. These are the best sellers, right? This is Avatar and Hurt Locker, right? And down here is like that's everything else, right? And here's the popularity up and down this level. So the idea is that a very small number of things get almost all of the units sold or impressions made or whatever it might be. But the discovery that he made, kind of the way he looks at how the long tail is changing things, is that groups like Netflix or eBay, they can sell all this stuff down here. Because a mass retailer can only stock so many things, so they're going to stock this stuff. And this stuff just isn't available. Whereas Netflix says, yeah, we can have a copy of that movie in a warehouse someplace, and if you want it, we'll deliver it. And eBay says, you want an old tea kettle that somebody in Nebraska has, we can get that for you. But this is what's happening in philanthropy. All of the attention in philanthropy historically has been on, right, the Gates Foundation, right, the United Way. This is where all exploration's happening, right? This is all the Shearson Ericksons of the world, right, with 2 staff members. But what's really exciting to me about philanthropy in the social sector is that in the long tail, Anderson, the editor, says, but this is still all of the big stuff. This still makes up most of everything. It's just that you can make, there's opportunity down here, but it's still the minority of units sold, impressions made. In philanthropy, individual giving that's it. It's all individuals. Look at Gates, right there. This is the head. This is the long tail. But historically, all of our attention is paid on the long tail. It's all been focused on these big foundations, the Fords and the Gates, right? They've got very little money compared to everybody else. They've got very little time and resources compared to everybody else. And so we're now discovering ways to interact with individuals and encourage individuals and spread stories about people like Tom Siebel and Shearson Erickson, who 20 years ago would have just been a story in the local paper, and that's it. Now the Shearson Ericksons of the world are on the back of a bag of Doritos. I'm going to go past these 2 slides rather quickly because I'll talk about it more in the breakout session if you're interested. But there's a connection between all of what's going on in the culture and our technology. And that, in my mind, is the shift from kind of Web 1.0 to Web 2.0, which sounds like such a kind of buzzword sort of thing, like does it really make a difference? But it does. Web 1.0 is the idea of an individual with power, or an organization with power, putting information somewhere that's then consumed by the masses. Web 2.0 is about the content being created by the masses, right? So whereas Web 1.0 is CNN's website where the editors decide what goes up and it gets placed up there and the masses consume it, Web 2.0 is something like Twitter or Facebook where the users themselves are creating the content. And what's important about that is that it's the second one that's tapping into that 75% of people who are doing most of the giving. The other way to think about it, this is McKinsey, the consulting firm, right? I like how they use like the really boring colors, and the first one was some blogger somewhere that all the funny little characters. Web 1.0 is about automating transactions. I don't know how relevant that is to the social sector. I mean, it's great, you get a donation, click one button on your website and you go on. That's good, but it's not transformational. Web 2.0, according to McKinsey, the consulting firm, is about enabling collaboration and participation. That's what the social sector is about. Collaboration and participation. I don't think it's any accident that Web 2.0 is undermining the business models of corporations whose business is not to collaborate and participate, while at the same time enhancing the impact of the social sector, whose job is exactly that. This changes the hierarchy of how organizations work, of how information is distributed, about all of that. So the top is the traditional hierarchy, right? You get the president on top, the boss on top, and then the underlings doing the work. Now you have this networked culture, where the individuals are the ones who are self-organizing. And remember, it's important, not just because it feels good or it sounds nice, because those are the ones with all the money and the resources, right? The boss, the head, the Bill Gates Foundation, they don't have very much compared to everybody else. So the last couple of slides have been kind of, that's the theory. But this idea is seeping into mainstream culture in a very real way. Anybody see this show? This was on last summer. It was the top-rated television show over the summer season. NBC didn't stick with it, but it was a television show about a philanthropist. I couldn't believe they actually called it The Philanthropist. I mean, a lot of people, like in my firm, consulting with philanthropists, there's the Center for High Impact Philanthropy at the University of Pennsylvania put out a study called I'm Not Rockefeller, and they interviewed very high net worth individuals, and the number one thing that they all had in common is they said, well, we're not philanthropists. These are people who give over $1 million a year, so I'm not Rockefeller. There was no self-identification with the phrase. So all of us who consult with major donors are always worried, can we use the word philanthropy? Is it going to turn people off? So NBC had the guts to actually put it on. It's sort of like Teddy Wrist. But what's cool about the show is that this is how change happens in America. I was in a debate at a think tank in DC with the head of the Council on Foundations, who put out a press release, the council did, on the day that this premiered, blasting the show, saying it made philanthropy look fun and easy. It was like the worst words he could think of. I said, I hope it's fun. Why else are you doing it? I mean, gosh. Philanthropy should be it. It should be exciting, and it should be fun, and it shouldn't be easy in the sense that we don't have to work hard, but it should be something that we're embracing. It's not something for a bunch of people to do in a boardroom and doing boring strategic planning and stuff. When Law and Order came out, applications to law schools spiked dramatically in the next 2 years. When the X-Files came out, applications to the FBI spiked dramatically. When CSI came out, there weren't very many forensic science units at universities. You look around, they're all launching forensic science programs. I don't think this is going to have the exact same effect, unfortunately. It probably would have if it lasted for a decade or something. It's probably a little bit early. But these are the sort of markers that we see in our culture that's signifying and driving the change. I'm going to come back. I have one more thing I want to show you. But first I want to go to questions from the audience and hear what you all have to say, and then we'll go to one more thing. So who has the first question? So she's asking, how do we support the process of helping our clients research what they're going to do before they do it? I think all these people, when they tell their story, they tell their story by saying, well, we did all of this research first. And that's kind of how you're supposed to do everything in life, right? You kind of research and analyze, then you do. Has anyone read the book Switch? It just came out by Chip Heath, the same people who wrote Made to Stick. In the book Switch, he talks about how change actually happens. And he talks about, it's basically people see something, they think about it, and then they do it. And then they analyze and research and do all that, and then they modify and they do a second generation and third generation. So Steve and Liz didn't didn't spend 3 years creating a plan for all of this. They just did it and made mistakes and researched along the way. Shearson Erickson, she started Forge when she was really young. She didn't spend years and years researching all of this. She saw a problem, she tackled it, made tons of mistakes, almost destroyed her organization, but all along the way she had a commitment to recognizing what was working, what wasn't, and doing the research along with that. So I'm definitely a plan of basing any activity on what works, and we tell our clients that one of the key ways in evaluating a nonprofit is to ask them what research they based their programs on. But I don't necessarily think that it's a good thing to get laid up in research to not do, because you're too busy trying to figure out what should be done. I think there's something you do simultaneously. Next question here.